presented. We have Arthur Chen, EVP with
Palisades,
right? Kyle Acquistapace.
I wanted to see you try to say that, man. No one leaves until you say it right. Acquistapace.
Very good, thank you. We have Thierry Cornet from University of McCann, and unfortunately Dave Marsey could not join us today, so it'll just be the four of us today. And I guess I want to start off asking you guys sort of a simple, relatively open-ended question about location and what it means in the context of your business today. And that question is sort of, as we've seen locations start to be applied, starting with geofences, now sort of more advanced geo-audiences, when you look at the way that brands and agencies are using the opportunities available to them from a technology perspective, is there any particular element of that you see and say, this is being very effective today, and where you'll be able to take these things into the future in terms of what's going on? So I'll start with you, Thierry.
Yeah, we see effectiveness in geolocation on a variety of levels. We see it for our store driving campaigns as being a tactic that we can rely on to push an audience into the store. We see results from various tools that measure things, that sort of thing, like placed in ways with triple digits, sometimes efficacy in driving an audience to a location. Beyond that, we also see success in on the branding side, leveraging second-party data. So data from a provider like Yelp, where they know where, in the case of Wells Fargo, they know where cash-only restaurants are. And so they can layer on a user's location plus the fact that it's a cash-only restaurant to serve a message specific for ATM use in that area.
Great. Kyle, what about you?
I'm glad you used the word effectiveness because I think it's an important thing to separate from efficiency. In looking at campaigns that we've done recently that had a lot of location-based data on them, they were all wildly effective on whatever the metric was and horribly expensive. And that's okay, because in some cases there wasn't a cheaper alternative. They just looked horribly expensive relative to the usual options that planners are used to seeing and low CPM and all that stuff. And if you can kind of break yourself away from effectiveness equals efficiency, you can uncork some really cool stuff, but we kind of have to let go of some of the old measures of cheapness versus goodness.
Yeah, for us, I'm going to represent some of the entertainment industry in a sense because we have a few studios that we work with, but we see a lot of effectiveness in terms of looking at people who are obviously going to theaters and, with the AMCs and all the exhibitors out there, we map them all out, and everyone that goes, on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday to go see a movie, we definitely want them to go see ours. And, roughly about 40% of any given audience are people going to, see a film, haven't decided, what we call undecided moviegoers. Being able to really target those people in and around theater locations is just, it's almost like it's great. The one problem we do have, though, is still, across the industry, is that the attribution of how much that contributed to any given ticket sales is tough to, to connect the dots on. But we do know from, doing A/B testing, from one market it's on, the other market it's not. You definitely see certain markets outperforming others.
So I'm going to follow up a little bit on that attribution issue, which is, are there any specific solutions that you've seen that help in that area, or is that an area where the industry just has to do a better job in terms of producing ultimately better solutions and better data for the clients?
I think for everyone it's going to be, every client's going to be different, every brand is going to be different, only because of the access to data that you have, and the nature of your business is going to dictate whether or not you can close that loop.
Okay, Kyle, do you have some thoughts on that?
Just the biggest thought is hire the best data people you can find. I mean, they're really the unsung heroes within agencies, whether they're integrated agencies or standalone media agencies, who know clients' business and work to resolve the attribution question. I haven't seen a great answer, but I've seen really good people get really close. And the key is to put a lot of energy and resources into hiring really smart analysts. That's my hack for data strategy.
Yeah, it's a challenge for us on the technology side, and then the clients are also out hiring the best data scientists because we all need those people.
And Google and Facebook, and they have way better sushi at Google than we do. I guarantee you, but we're a better place to work.
Thierry, any particular elements of attribution that you've seen be more effective or less effective?
I would pile on to Arthur's comment about the local market heavy ads is probably the most effective that I've seen so far, and that's mainly because of the hole in the data, the inherent lack of a cookie that we have by and large for mobile. And so the local market heavy ads is typically the best way we can get results.
Great. So Kyle, you alluded to a campaign that was expensive but effective. Can you tell us a little bit more about that campaign or another campaign that you were involved in that was particularly successful from a client's perspective, even potentially with the cost?
I was hoping to talk about incredibly failed campaigns today.
We can do that too. That'll be next.
No, we were talking before about a campaign. So for location-based campaigns, I think the key is when location really, really matters versus it's just a nice to have. Movie theaters, that's critical. Right? We had a campaign for a large insurance client who needed to reach federal employees. It was open enrollment, time to pick a new insurance company, and there's not a real good way to reach federal employees. There's not Federal Employee Monthly magazine or an exciting reality show on Bravo about federal employees. They just sort of exist in the world and are hard to target. But thanks to mobile and location-based stuff, we were able to take the literally 1,000 buildings that the federal employees worked in that were part of this open enrollment period, target those with mobile, and reach those people as they came in and out of work or inside work. Couldn't do desktop targeting because there's so many rules at the federal level about how what you can and can't do on your computer at work. Can't do Facebook. Can't do a lot of things that you would normally use to access location-based targeting. So mobile became the crux, which was just getting these people as they went to work every day. And it worked incredibly well. And we had scale. The previous panel was talking about scale because we had such a large pool of employees. It really actually worked out pretty beneficially in terms of both effectiveness and scale. I think we had a 5.8 time increase in traffic to the client's special federal enrollment site. Not a super exciting example because it's insurance and federal employees. I probably lost you at the beginning when I said that. But in terms of a really important location-based case for why to use location, it stands out for me.
Great, thanks. Arthur, how about you? Any special campaign that you really kind of look at and say this one was particularly interesting, the location component?
Yeah, I think, and sort of relevant now because we have the Oscars coming up, and I think many of you know that the Oscars are voted on by a guild or what they call AMPAS, and it's a Academy of Motion Pictures and whatnot, and there's just a certain number of membership in terms of that group. A couple years ago, for one of our studios, every year we're doing for your considerations ads to get that nominated and voted on. And this one voting period was right over Christmas break, or right when we knew a lot of these Academy members were going on vacation or global vacation. So we knew certain attributes about them and whatnot from different data sources. But what we layered on top of that was that we knew they were going on vacation either in Santa Barbara or Palm Springs. So we completely geofenced that entire area and did the same thing on the East Coast to reach these Academy members. Efficient? No. I mean, those kind of campaigns are not supposed to be efficient, but we definitely felt like it contributed quite a bit to the frequency that they saw our ads versus other competitive studios.
That's great, pretty interesting, and obviously very timely with the Oscars coming up. Thierry, how about yourself? Any particular campaign? In particular, you mentioned a campaign in which you were applying not just sort of the actual location, but other data on top of that. That's something that we at Thinknear are working hard to sort of enhance in terms of our offering. What was your experience in terms of working with that?
So it was actually really positive. So being able to leverage a unique data set that is inherent to a publisher and is, for us, performed better than exploring third-party data options in that case. Another such instance is with a navigation app and just wanting to establish how
What is it that you or your clients want, or what is it that you see happening in the industry that will be a big benefit in terms of delivering value to your clients as we sort of slide forward with what we're doing? And I guess I'll start with you, Director.
Yeah, I think that one of the things we think about, and it's tough probably for some in the room, is that when we're looking at mobile, we're looking at location-based marketing, right? We cannot think of it anymore in terms of just display. I know a lot of, that might split the room to a certain degree, but it's not, I don't see that sort of either effectiveness or efficiency lasting that much longer. I think a different way to think about it, especially for a lot of the networks and publishers here, and if you guys do this, you're going to have to give me a little bit of credit for this, but taking location-based data from either, whatever device you have, and then being able to buy across, a platform-agnostic media programmatic buy. So, as an example, if I have my phone on me and I'm home, and I turn on, my XM radio or Pandora radio, that then all of a sudden some sort of relevant messaging, like, order pizza tonight, comes out through, while listening to Pandora. Rather than, us as a marketer thinking about if I'm in a certain location, that, it has to be on that one device. I think that we need to sort of expand our thinking about how our messaging flows, through various media using location. I'd like to see that happen.
You're looking maybe a little farther ahead of the timeline I was thinking, but
I don't think it's that far. It's just one connection, like, two dots need to be connected, and you have it.
So when my Nest tells me to order a pizza, I'm going to blame you for that.
That's exactly it. And I will be the head of marketing at Nest.
Yeah. I will come find you on your yacht. And
Kyle, what about you? What do you have?
The last panel was talking about scale, so I'm going to feel like a chump saying scale. And it's as much on us as media planners and media buyers to not outsmart ourselves. And with all the choices that are available in location-based data, you can start to paint yourself into an incredibly smart, incredibly small corner. And so I think the key is how to stay smart, use this data correctly, but still, for those of us with big national brands that we're trying to manage and where there is a need for volume, how to put those two together and still achieve some reach, even though I know in the last panel reach was a dirty word. It's still important sometimes.
Thierry, go ahead.
So the most scalable right now targeting technology and location is, and the most accurate is the GPS targeting. And as anybody who pulls up their Google Maps in here will see that the radius of your location right now is somewhere between half a city block and a full city block, and that's using the best data available in the hardware as it currently exists. So we're in the next 12 months, I think the brands and advertisers that get farthest ahead in advancing their accuracy of their location are going to be starting to leverage the beacon technologies and really be able to tell if we're at the Westin St. Francis or at the Starbucks across the street, and measure according to where you are, if it's brand lift efficacy that you're trying to associate with your location strategy, or your messaging delivery, making sure that that's more accurate. It's not going to be widespread, I don't think, in 12 months, but I think that people on the cutting edge will begin to start leveraging it.
Great. So, when you guys think about where the industry can continue to work around location, each of you had some different thoughts about how creative and delivering the sort of right kind of solution at the right time in terms of location. Some thoughts around that. I think I'm going to start with you, Kyle, because this is an area that you were particularly sort of excited about or focused on in terms of what we were doing as an industry.
Well, yeah, I at least have an opinion on it. I think the key, and I say this coming from an integrated agency, full service agency, media creative, like Deutsch, LA. The key is not just using location-based information as a way to target, but also as a critical way to message if there's something to message. To be able to bring those two together, I think is incredibly powerful. Right now for Zillow, the real estate website, which I'm sure many of you use, or I hope you do, we do location-based mobile. We serve up on the weekends open houses. which is incredibly important. Open houses are letting people know that there's an open house near them is one of the things that Zillow does, and literally doing that there's one near you when you're in a mobile environment is really powerful for us. And again, it's wildly effective for Zillow in terms of driving traffic to the site, engagement, because we're telling people something that makes sense. There's a house for sale right in your area that you should go check out, and it's open right now for viewing. People love to go to open houses for a lot of different reasons, whether they're buying or just want to peek into their neighbor's house to see how they decorate it, and that's okay. We'll take that traffic either way, and the message then works with the targeting.
Great, so perfect, sort of a perfect integration of the media with the application itself in terms of driving the value of the application into your message. Arthur?
Yeah, I think, going back to the beacon technology, both of those combined, moving forward, I could see that being really, really effective in the sense that for different brands, when you walk into a store, we were just talking about this earlier, with beacons, on your home screen will, a new, the little app, icon pops up on your home screen. So you don't have to have it downloaded, but you can see a world where anytime you walk into that brand's either retail space or QSR, whatever it may be, every one of those experiences are not only unique to them, but consumers are going to be looking at it as if they're expecting that to pop up. And that ultimately, talk about location-based marketing. And let's say one of our clients is beverages and more. You walk in, the icon pops up, you're used to it, you open it up, and it's a shopping guide. Versus, let's say you go to a QSR and it talks, maybe a little bit more about the brand story. But again, it would be really interesting to see that, and I hope brands will, embrace that technology.
Again, not a traditional use of media, but clearly an important type of messaging platform for brands to take advantage of and use in a completely different way.
The entire experience is the ad, the marketing itself.
Great. Thierry, I'll let you.
I would just add to that, based on the earlier panel of the app versus web debate, that may actually play a role in the future of the app versus the mobile web, just in terms of if we do have 90-some apps or 200 in some cases on our phones, having that functionality front and center on your device may actually drive customers to use a greater variety of apps, and that attrition that happens after the initial download, we may see that start to wither away to some degree.
Great, thanks very much. And then sort of a final thought here from the panel in terms of going back to that sort of application and application environment. When you think about location and where location can take us and what it can do, is there anything that you look at in that context in which particular apps need to be doing something different, or maybe brands need to be a lot more thoughtful about how they're integrating location in the activities they're engaged in? Is there anything that you think of there that can be sort of a marker for brands to be thinking about how they take advantage of their apps and ultimately the media or the natural experience that they're building inside of it? Arthur?
It's difficult because it's going to be different for every brand and the experience that they want to put out there. But I think that when you look at it in that sense, I see a lot of potential again going back to, let's say, if we're able to take that location data and then pushing it out to a certain type of media based on where you're at. So in that sense, let's say, one of the largest outdoor media groups out there, let's say they acquire somebody who does this, right? Now you got something very powerful, especially with the digital billboards, and then you can look at the data in that sense. That opens up a whole kind of wide open world to do things kind of Minority Report-esque. But, I would like to see that.
Kyle, is that your dream world?
No, that sounds, as a marketer, I love it. As a user, it sounds hellish. But again, I'll see you on your yacht. My only answer to your question would be, as a user, I feel that apps abuse location-based services purely from a battery drain standpoint. There's some apps that are horrible at managing that. It's silly, it's dumb. but then I turn it off entirely for that app, and they've lost me from a location-based standpoint. So that's beyond my pay grade in terms of the technology there. That just seems like a lost opportunity.
Yes, definitely. And it's not actually that hard to manage that if you spend some time and energy from a technical perspective solving that problem. So that's more about the diligence of the applicant in terms of what they're trying to do. Thierry, how about you?
I guess driving relevance is going to be king, as it is with anything else. If we're building in location for the sake of having a location feature, then it is going to piss off consumers a lot more than actually building some value into having that location service. So being really selective and edited in the deployment of your location is probably going to be key.
Great, thanks very much. Jay, did you have audience questions?
Yeah, let's open up for some questions if you want to. The last session right before lunch.
Hard to keep people
First audience question is, where is lunch?
Where's lunch?
Feed us, please, is what they're saying.
Anybody? Here's one.
Hi, Loren from SNL Reagan. Who do you see in the marketplace who's really leveraging indoor LBS and doing it really well right now? And, I mean, what kind of time frame do you see before we'll see more widespread adoption of that technology?
Anybody have any experience with that?
I'm not qualified.
I don't know that I'm qualified either.
Don't let that stop you.
Just as
It's
a
advertising. Don't let that stop you.
Just as from a user perspective, what I've seen, Starbucks is the second you walk into the Starbucks, you see the icon on your lock screen, and then you can instantly pay. So it's driving the utility for the customer, it's relevant to the customer, and they'll tolerate the battery drain because it's bringing those things. Another one, obviously, would be the Apple Store. Does similar functionality, setting an appointment, but also imagine when you go to your financial institution of choice, and instead of waiting in line and then telling them who you are and why you're there, you are greeted by name, and they already know what you need, who you need to talk to and what you're there to see them about. So it begins to lower that friction coefficient begins to go down as the adoption is properly deployed.
So I have a question following up on that. When does convenient become creepy? When do we get to the point where location is just a little bit too much and we're too close to something we're just not comfortable with?
When all of Arthur's creepy dreams are realized.
I don't think there is a limit. I think people get freaked out about the whole NSA thing and all that, but I believe that there should be, and someone is going to come up with either a technology or some sort of software or usage function that creates that sort of sea change in mentality, that it is okay. And I would like to have relevant messages given to me at any given point when available. It just enriches any given experience. So again, up until that day, there's going to be more people biased towards the creepiness side. But I do feel someone is going to make a change, a significant change in that arena, in that sort of mindset.
Great. One final question, and it's come up on the Twitter feed here, and that is, talk to us about location outside of the major DMAs. Once you start getting into rural areas, smaller towns, how does it change the thinking about how a location campaign is built?
Scale comes to mind as the biggest challenge there, right? You geofence a given location in a rural area, and your incidence rate for identifying your target audience is going to be minuscule. So that's probably the number one thing, and you're probably going to end up needing to widen that geofence to a area that's almost the size of the DMA in some cases.
Yeah, I can say from Thinknear's perspective that we look at that as part of the optimization process, and clients will have locations spanning a number of areas, maybe dense metropolitan areas as well as less dense areas, and you do have to look at each individual instance and figure out what's really working in the context of this campaign and how are the clients responding to it, consumers responding to it in terms of the creative